He says this morning there were two words that couldn't find meanings. Three Mahidas. Rinpoche Yangzab, yeah.
Rinpoche Yangzab, 강의 되는데 다저도 교시인이래 도 하나 이 강의 되는데 rinpoche Yangzab 다다 계단 계름을 조름 이어래 계름 조름 이네 되니 조름을 되니 조름다 조름 치고 이 요래 대 독신로라 등이 하고 마서 변나
Dzogchen, there's a generation and then completion stage, and there are two completing stages. So when this morning it was said Rinpoche means second and second. So the Tibetan it says Nipa means it's the second of the second. So what it refers to is the generation, and the completion stage has two categories. And this completion stage, there is the general completion and then the greater completion. In general, we speak of completion stage, we're seeing all the phenomena and objects as not as a solid, however, more like a dream-like nature. And then visualize that dream-like nature has also rainbow-like nature. So in the Dzogchen or the Great Perfection, there's no need for doing the generation and completion stage, because Dzogchen is a direct experience of the nature of the mind. So he says he understood the meaning, but however, when in the words, in the book, he didn't understand what it meant by the second of the second. So he says, after you purify the two obscurations, that is the obscuration of the mental affliction, and then the other obscuration is the intellectual obscuration, which is the veil that obscures the true nature, or the Buddha nature. And having actually seen the true nature, he says, then the base and the fruit are of the same. They're not separate entities. So in the practice of Dzogchen, what we practice and experience is the Dzogchen, and the fruit of it, what we get from practice is also Dzogchen. He says there's no difference between the base and the fruit. So base is the Dzogchen, which is we call the great perfection or the Buddha nature, and the fruit of it, the practice, the true practice is also Dzogchen, and the fruit is Dzogchen. That means if you attain the great perfection. Here you said you can actually ask questions. If you don't understand immediately, that would not be considered interruption. So the view of Dzogchen, or the essence, is that of a wisdom of emptiness, and the nature is the wisdom of lucidity or luminosity, and the characteristic of this wisdom of ceaselessness or boundlessness. So also when we said the transformation of the 5 poisons, the 5 mental afflictions, into the 5 wisdom. So those 5 wisdoms are not a separate entity, but another, it is the 5 aspects or 5 facets of the mind. And each one has its given name, but however they're not different. It's just like a cloth. If you dye with 5 different colors, but the quality and the substance of the cloth is the same. He says the nature of all phenomena are that of emptiness, and once realization of the emptiness, then the law of karma on the cause and effect cease to exist, because of the cause and effect has also has the same nature, which is the nature of emptiness. So it says, although it is said that wisdom is like ocean, or ocean of wisdom, that there are so many wisdoms, and however the essence of all the wisdoms are same. And he says there are 4 empowerment which represent the 4 kayas, and this is for the purpose of practicing the four paths of Dzogchen.
Wang yi lam ni ngotu ju kare je gawa yi ngotu ko yore gawa je de na bena di ngoso di zalong ko ko jine de ni jo won dim ba chen kha di ni zalong thile la di ni gawa yi ngotu ko yore de la di ni gawa je da wang je tam je dong ngotu ji ba wang je bo ngotu je je de si na wa je de de yore ko so wang yi ngotu je na ngō 제제 가와지 ngō 그래
가와세 가데
가와지들 대와 무슨 디 잘롱 틀리로 잘롱 틀리지 니 저원에 마파오네 지 가와 초가 틀리지 가와지데 요래 가와 다데 남 ngō 떠발라 가바지 니 왕이게 왕이라 티니 가와지데 ngō 꾸지 요래 가와지 왕데 무슨 거 요래 On
the basis of the 4 empowerment, one is introduced to the 4 blisses. So there are also 4 stages of nature of emptiness, and meaning that each stage one becomes more and more clear. Although we speak of different wisdoms, and also as variety as like the wisdom of ocean like wisdom. However, these qualities one spontaneously acquire when you reach the great perfection. So in the essence, they are same, although it is defined as different clarities or luminosity of wisdoms. So first, one to recognize those wisdoms, and then to gain stability. Although the wisdom or the knowledge of the four vehicles and the menga is how do you say? Menga kare? Path instruction are same. So Yishikundo means because such a name is given because it consists of all the essence of all the teachings of all the other vehicles, the 9 vehicles, or the path instructions of 9 vehicles. It has he says the lineage of this teaching or the path instruction has been sort of approved from the whole Buddhist teaching or from the origin of the Vajradhara. Come here.
Hindi ang long le ishi tengzo les ta tongda ta de kong ke chipa ishi nam la so do de pa rang ishi chepol de pa se rikpa de pa chugun ta wa de rang ri ishi me de chugu to so de.
So here is the scriptural quotation that supports what was just said before. It says the tantra called Yeshe Tingzok. It means like profound, perfect, timeless awareness. It says that in brief, the 5 types of timeless awareness and so forth are contained within, or subsumed by the great self-arising timeless awareness. Because of that, they are all contained within awareness itself, or Rigpa. So this is the root of all phenomena, and the self, or the self-realizing or innately, intrinsically aware timeless awareness is the inexhaustible spiritual nature of the Dharmakaya. And so what this means, for practical intents and purposes, what this means is that if we can eliminate all the namtoks or concepts and ideas and other types of mental modification from our mind, then what we end up with is the intrinsic awareness that is timeless, and all qualities are contained within that. So the purpose of all these quotations is so that we'll be confident, and so we'll sort of have a chance to have that, kind of that shocking recognition that or understanding of what is the case here. So here but basically all of these quotations are making the same point over and over again. And so this next quote makes the point that basically all of the different practices of the different vehicles come down to the same thing. In fact, that what's being taught in Dzogchen is the same as what is taught, for example, in the 2 stages of the development of bodhicitta, the alternate practices of shamatha and vipassana, or calm abiding and insight, in the 10 paramitas, and in empowerments, and all of the different types of conduct that are associated with secret mantra. So all of those are perfect in this great perfection. So Jigten Sumgon said that all of the Buddhas are able to stay in the same place, in the same dwelling, and that dwelling is one's own mind. So here's some other quotations. It says that each of the, in this quote from the Tigle Kurpa, that's one of the Dzogchen Tantras, it says each of the 8 lower vehicles make a particular point or have a particular perspective that is a sort of fragmentary perspective of my basic reality, my being, I suppose, the primordial Buddha. And it says all of these are overcome or overpowered by me. In other words, I contain all of these. And in my state, there's no change whatsoever. And there's also another quote here from the great Array Tantra, which says, one thing is perfect, two things are perfect, everything is perfect. There's a quotation here from the root text, or it's an explanation of. We're just now finishing the explanation of the title. We come to the words shukso, which comes at the end of the title. So it's saying that all of the aforementioned has been to explain the meaning of the title of the text, and it says here that that all of what has been discussed before is an indication of what is to be found inside of the text that follows. And then it says that among the 6 great papers, so there are 6 different colors of scroll, of paper scroll, each one that's colored with a different precious or semi-precious stone or metal. So there's a yellow one that's made from gold, and a blue one that's made from turquoise, and so on. And so this one is the copper-colored. This particular dharma comes from the treasure that was recorded in the secret Dakini script on a copper-colored paper. So there were 6 different colors of paper, and then it says Samaya, which is the seal.
배는 다 담지게 강인들은 배나 가장 기본 보지가 되게 종족성에 저도 그 사초성들이 이제는 도도적으로들이 용기 가는 게면 다 가장 종족능이 때문에 되는 사초성들이 레레기 되는 시험을 드립에 사초성들 소속 세라 당문의 사람들이 세미 제주어래 되는 족바집이 주 제주들이 시험을 되는 족바집이 주대로 동항치를 당치로 되는 소속들이 되는 용을 봐. And
so in the different sections of the Way of the Bodhisattva that we heard explained by Khenpo, there are different metaphors and different quotations and different stories and so on, all of which are mentioned in order to inspire confidence in the benefits of bodhicitta and so on. And so in the same way, in this commentary, we have all these different quotations and different quotations and inferences made to inspire our confidence in the authenticity of the teaching. So this is what's just been done here. And so the word samaya here indicates the vow or commitment to dispel all of the confusion of the entire universe. So there are different ways of explaining the meaning of the title of a text. So one can explain according to the general meaning of the text, according to the topic or the breadth of the text, according to the person who requested, according to the one who wrote it, and according to examples and so on. So there are many ways of titling a text, but in this case, the title of the text is made with reference to the greatness of its qualities. So the text begins with the line. It says, "Salutation to the Blessed One," or "Salutation to Chomdende," to the Buddha or to the Blessed One. It says the object of the salutation here is the primordial Buddha, who recognized the basis, in other words, recognized the ground of his own existence, and awaking from the 3 types of nescience, or unawareness, vanquished the 4 maras in the 4 obstructing forces in ultimate space, and actually realized the state of ultimate wisdom that knows everything as it is, and everything in its true nature and also in its particularity, as well as the 10 powers of Buddhahood. And thus attained the great Dharmakaya of timeless awareness that is completely free of the two extremes. Also, at the same time, illuminating the world with the aspects or with the different forms of the two rupakayas, of the two form kayas, or manifest embodiments, and thus enacting a great wave of enlightened activity which churns the depths of cyclic existence, or overturns the depths of cyclic existence. So it says in the total Tantra of total luminosity, or Kunsel, it says, with the prajna, or discriminating awareness of realization, having attained the realization through realization of discriminating awareness, he overcomes obstructing forces, or maras, is endowed with the power of enlightened knowledge, and passes beyond the limits of subject and object, or transcends both subject and object. Therefore, he is called the one who vanquishes, the one who is endowed with, and the one who transcends, or in Tibetan the word is Chomdende. So there's a lot that could be said about these two quotations. There's a lot of depth here, but just to point out a few implications of what is said here. When it says that says this is the explanation of the salutation, which is a homage to the Bhagavan, or homage to Chomdende. So homage, usually Bhagavan is translated as the Blessed One. So here it's explaining the commentary and the quotations are explaining the meaning of the three words here, Chomdende, which is usually it's the translation of the Sanskrit Bhagavan. And so it says that in reference to the meaning of transcendence, it's transcending the limits of of both subject and object, and that is the attainment of Dharmakaya. And then the form kayas, or the formal embodiments of Buddhahood, which are the Sambhogakaya and Nirmanakaya, are present throughout space to the extent of space, as far as space exists, and also as long as samsara endures, as long as cyclic existence exists. So as far as space goes, and as long as cyclic existence exists in time, then those two formal embodiments are also present. And then in the quotation from the Kunsel Tantra, it says that it says vanquishing the four maras. So there's some difference. Sometimes there's a difference between how the four maras are explained in a sutric context or a tantric context. And this is a quotation from a tantra, but in any case, in generally speaking, the four maras are the maras of the skandhas. So that means the mara, or demonic obstructing force, which is the psychophysical aggregates of one's own being. And then there's the obstructing force, which is the Lord of Death. So that means that we are under the influence of negative emotions. We are liable to experience death in a completely helpless way, and thus experience being carried or dragged from this life into the lower realms of existence. And then the obstructing influence of the son of the gods, or Devaputra Mara, manifests in excessive attachment to pleasure. And then also there is the Mara, or obstructing influence of the poisonous emotions, or the negative emotions themselves.
This is good to the father. Yindung, the Longo that took you get, then drop 30 tabala, Longo that took you chamber by the Parazon and the Zuko Sundup de Duma, took ye bar Ishan. Don't you Rangi, don't need it, Rangi, don't you. Rangi don't you link it up there that and you link it to look to the race.
So the first few words of the text are of the root text are glorious Samantabhadra or glorious Kuntuzangpo. So here comes an explanation of who Kuntuzangpo is. There's a quotation from the Pramana of Arctica, or treatise on valid cognition, which also renders homage to Samantabhadra or Kuntuzangpo. So it says, the one who dispels the nets of namtoks or of thought, the one who attained the profound and vast kaya, the one who emanates rays of goodness in all directions. To that one I pay homage. So then it says that the meaning of Pel here, or Shri, or glorious, is that by realizing the significance of natural spontaneous presence that is extremely pure, that is to say, the spontaneous presence of reality itself, or dharmata, Kuntuzangpo, has realized his own. In other words, he has glorified himself in that way, or realized a state of glory for himself, and by manifesting the bodies of manifestation, the Sambhogakaya and Nirmanakaya, for the sake of others, he has discovered the glory of others, or he has manifested the glory of others. So, being spontaneously perfect without straying from one's own nature is Kuntuzangpo, or the primordial Buddha Samantabhadra, in the sense of conduct. And then there are a number of other senses in which that one can understand the meaning of Kuntuzangpo. Moreover, there is the sense of Kuntuzangpo in that one sense of Kuntuzangpo here is that by rendering obeisance to Kuntuzangpo, we render obeisance to all of the five Buddhas. So the five skandhas, the five aggregates of the body, the five poisonous emotions, as well as the five wisdoms, and the five lineages or families of male and female Buddhas, are all contained in the essence of Kuntuzangpo. So Kuntuzangpo is like the ground, or the quintessence of all those different fivefold aspects. He's the coalescence, or the way those all come together. Because he became enlightened in the state of reality itself, that is suchness free of any kind of elaboration, he is called, we have the expression Shi Kuntuzangpo, which means the Kuntuzangpo as the primordial ground. Because he became awakened in the state of timeless awareness of the three kayas, that is sort of self-arising bodhicitta, then he is called Rikpa Kuntuzangpo, or Kuntuzangpo as awareness. So this line basically, the Rinpoche summarized by saying that the meaning of of this description that's about to follow is basically it's the same idea that we've seen before, that you have a single nature that is similar to a crystal, and the manifestation of that nature, the infinitely sort of rich and all-encompassing manifestation of that nature is like the refraction of light by a crystal that emits five different colors of light. So all the five colors of light potentially exist in the crystal, and so they all have the same nature. Basically, they're inseparable from the crystal. You can't have light diffracting into five colors without a crystal. So the expression or the radiance of the crystal and the crystal itself are part of the same continuum. And so this idea is explored here, where it says that awareness is literally adorned by emptiness. And that means that, that awareness is, there's nothing in particular that one can say. One can't say what it is. One can't point to it. It doesn't have any substantial quality to it whatsoever. But that emptiness of awareness, in other words, awareness and emptiness are inseparable or coalescent. So Riktong Sungjuk means emptiness and awareness are coalescent. Next it says that, that emptiness is ornamented by timeless awareness. So that means that emptiness is never just empty. It's never just emptiness. That it is always complemented or ornamented by timeless awareness, meaning awareness that has always been there. So there's an awareness, or yeshe, primordial wisdom, or timeless awareness that is part and parcel of that emptiness. It pervades that emptiness. Then the ornament, which is the embodiment of that timeless awareness, is the source of light. For example, in the practice of Togao, when in Togao practice, the various aspects of timeless awareness and the three kayas manifest in the form of light rays and other forms. So that and then the ornamentation of that manifestation of light is the source of or pervades into, or sort of has its ramification in Pure Land. So in other words, when those embodiments, when the three kayas manifest in that way, they pervade all of the realms of cyclic existence, or they coalesce with all of the phenomena of cyclic existence, and thus manifest in every conceivable way for the sake of every conceivable sentient being. So in this sense, there is a sense of Pure Land or Buddha field, because each of those embodiments is relating to a different realm or a different group of sentient beings in a different Buddha field or a different realm of existence. So these are the three levels of the ornamentation of the manifestation, or the manifestation or ornamentation of Samantabhadra.
벨레다 당소디 샹함디 샹함 탐제를 따다 대화기 정강나 사제 밤에 거요 우득이 찹대요 어제는 가리리 생기 탐제 제와치보 원래 톡동반이 죽거든 남카다왜 되게 찹대요나 뒤랑 징어더니 몇밤 매빈 hingi 생기는 hingi 자당주 사중 생공거리 되더니 hingi 집어들게 찹대 뒤 hingi 또 되게 빼나 저는 대화기 매도는 몇직 기억나 띵하네요 사제 밤에 이제 배고는더니 지나갈 다시 되는데 저는 가라라 그 나와더니 리리리 샤용을 빼나 나는 사제 그쪽 째구나 이 세공들이 들을 자타바오니 세공은 사제리 샤제 뒤 남기더니 무소라 대칭이 보고 빼나 생부터 봤다나 드니 리링은 사제리 요하는 이 이제 동네 사제 ጭባ 차니 다더니 이제 생각한다는 빼나
And so the reference to Buddha field here, for example, we could consider the Buddha field of Amitabha. The word Amitabha literally means limitless light. So what is the sense of limitless light here? The limitless light means limitless compassion. And so the limitless compassion of the Buddha Amitabha is what makes it possible for each and every sentient being to be greeted by Amitabha if they pray to Amitabha, or if they have a connection to Amitabha, they will see Amitabha when they die, and he'll say Tashi Delek, and then so in other words, Amitabha manifests to each and every sentient being, insofar as each and every sentient being is able to realize some degree of purification of their own mind. So if they, to whatever extent they can uncover the ground of their being, which is the Buddha nature, then they will be able to meet the Buddha face to face. So in fact, they're not actually meeting anything other than their own true nature. It just may seem that way, but the fact that they have this Buddha nature is the ground of the possibility for their being able to have a vision, for example, of the Buddha Amitabha when they pass away. So there is this sort of threefold ornamentation that was referred to before: the ornamentation of awareness by emptiness, emptiness by timeless awareness by the embodiments of enlightenment. And however, if that expression of the ornamentation of, basically it's the ornamentation or the adornment of Kuntuzangpo, primordial Buddhahood, if that is subject to confusion or to delusion, but the word here is chulpa, it means something like confusion, then there's a corresponding level of there's three corresponding levels of confusion that occur, and thus we end up with the fact of cyclic existence. So what that means is that we find ourselves in the situation of being confused by the five poisonous emotions and so on. And someone who really practices and understands how all these phenomena manifest on a single basis knows that's just wrong. That's just a mistake, a kind of cosmic error, and that aside from the individual minds that create that sense of confusion, that none of that actually exists. And so it says here that even that all of the threefold aspect of confusion never strays or never actually separates from the state of Kuntuzangpo, from the state of primordial Buddhahood, because there's actually can be no separation within the state of primordial Buddhahood. One can realize that state and understand exactly how it is that others are lost in the state of confusion, but at the same time be absolutely not subject to that, and to realize that is an error. So it says here that there is no impurity. There is actually no impurity in the state of the primordial Buddha. So what's being said here is mostly exactly the same as what is said in the aspiration prayer of Kuntuzangpo. So it sounds like pretty much the same, except there are some things here that we don't exactly understand because it's a little bit more detailed. But basically, this is a very, very profound, very trenchant explanation of what is already familiar to most of us in the aspiration prayer of Kuntuzangpo.
무슨 냠소리는 뭐 다 똑같이 뭐 이제 냠소리는 가창리 비지 가보랬더니 가보 말에 무슨 냠소리 소시 셈을 때내다 따따따따 냠소리는 빼라 산다 셈은 녀만 봐 쇼치 보이 지리감이 녀만 거는 뭐 때는 때는 거는 메도래 어디 녀만 봐 동반들 되니 셈과 빼 싸워야 되기요래 튼직 곰는 냠들지나 드리긴 봐요래 드린 오래 요 이 배는 드리네 뭐 근데장보 여기 뉴모바 동반이 드리 뉴모바 동반 뉴모바 찍 동반이나 닌직팅 호환 좋아를 접니 뉴모바가 소리 원래 나도 사양만 보라 나도 오고 찍바리 어떻게 년에 냠슬이 돌래 라고 강나 봐요 말이 남들이 맞으면더니 에이 뭐서 뭐 땅들이 가보여가 거대니 사람들이 주다다 깨찍찍로 주시 당시 보지 제가 감정 근데 몇 바탕 주다다 죽기 죽거든서 뭐지 주 상기에 살에 주 오래 양 디리주 뉴 뭐 찍게 다 줄래서는 양 심지로 끼찍찍도 끼찍찍 상제 끼찍찍 심지 되는 주고 오래 되니 유는 뭐 양손으로 또니 공성을 드린 모줄 매봐 되니 남카는 게 되게 얼마 근데 냠줄 인고래 니마 저 탱끼 냠줄로나 탱니 냠줄로나 되니 냠줄이 람상람상 곰도르가
So Kuntuzangpo for us means something like that, except in an absolute sense. Somebody who is absolutely unaffected by anything. Someone who is completely free of all the negative emotions. Somebody who is never comes under the power of the five negative emotions. Most people, when they have experienced the presence of a negative emotion, make some connection between that negative emotion and some situation outside of themselves. So they connect the dots from point A to point B to point C and end up spinning a web of very complicated emotional situations. And this is the way that we normally react to conflicting emotions. But somebody who has realized the intent of Kuntuzangpo, or someone who has become the same as Kuntuzangpo, never makes that connection. It doesn't matter what happens. It doesn't matter what sort of situations arise or even what kind of emotional energies are present. They're always free of that compulsive need to relate those situations to something outside of themselves, and are automatically in the state or in the mode of conduct that tames all of those emotions. So this is the meaning of Kunta Zangpo, just in a sort of in a general kind of practical sense. So now here in the commentary, the different senses of the 5 or 6 senses of Kunta Zangpo are being discussed, and here it is discussed the meaning of the realization Kunta Zangpo, or path Kunta Zangpo. So it says the Kunta Zangpo of the path, or Kunta Zangpo of realization, makes a definitive break between samsara and nirvana, or makes a definitive conclusion about what the origin of cyclic existence as well as transcendence or nirvana actually is, and that's done through realizing and becoming familiar with the nature of things, or the abiding nature of reality itself. So basically, what that means is, in practice, that means making a break or cutting through the usual process of thoughts, the usual process of experience. That means that there's a fundamental break that's made between the usual compulsive process of thinking and experiencing and the natural state of Kunta Zangpo. So here the Kunta Zangpo, in the sense of realization or path, is the one who makes a definitive distinction, or who comes to a definitive understanding about how both cyclic existence as well as nirvana come into existence. If you might recall in the aspiration prayer of Kunta Zangpo, or of Samantabhadra, that it says that there's one basis, 2 paths, and two outcomes. And also it says that if one realizes me, or if one recognizes me, then one is a Buddha. If one fails to recognize me, then one becomes a sentient being. So normally when we practice, we have this idea that it's all very difficult, and that it's hard to become enlightened, or to become Buddha, or to realize the state of Kunta Zangpo. But actually, in one sense at least, it's not that hard, because if you are able to liberate just one emotion, if you understand the principle of liberating just one conflicting emotion, then you understand the principle of liberating all conflicting emotions. If you can liberate one afflicting emotion in your own mind, then in principle you can liberate all of the conflicting emotions of the entire universe, of all sentient beings, because all conflicting emotions have the same nature. They're all basically the same thing. And so if you can liberate one emotion, then you can liberate all emotions. And so what happens when we practice is that we'll come to a certain point where we just see. We sort of come to the crossroads of samsara and nirvana. In other words, we see how both sides of the equation come into existence. They come into existence on the same basis. And when we see how that happens, then suddenly we are in the state of Kunta Zangpo. We have realized, or we have some experience at least of the state of Kunta Zangpo. And in itself, it's very simple. So that kind of recognition is really essentially very simple, and it's not difficult. It's not difficult, and yet there's a tendency to flip back into the state of a sentient being. In other words, recognition makes one a Buddha. Non-recognition makes one a sentient being. So at least on the path, there is a certain interchangeability. There's 1 minute one feels like a Buddha, the next minute one feels like a sentient being, because of lack of familiarity, but eventually we'll come to a firm conclusion that we have to put an end to this sort of wishy-washy flopping around state, and just remain in that state. We'll come to a kind of resolve and say, okay, I'm going to stick with this now. I'm not going to flip around anymore, or change around anymore. I'm going to stay with the state. And then that state of recognition, or being able to abide in that state, Kuntuzangpo state, extends from one moment to the next, and then from one minute to the next, from 1 hour to the next, and then finally it becomes prolonged further and further to the point where it becomes a really stable realization.
대다 장서 권도정부 특기 메롱레 다디 롱레 디 롱 권도정부 특기 메롱레 추탐제 권도정부 나이라 위의 시발 샤오서 강제는 다대 ramji kondo zangbo ta ramji kondo zangbo kare ramji kondo zangbo ta jin kondo zangbo ta tomba kondo zangbo rikpa kondo zangbo tokpa kondo zangbo ngare si dinga wo de pena 강에 되는 ramji kondo zangbo 되는 콘데게 추탐제 pena 오래 동만이 정을 못다 pena 콘데 동만이 정을 못다 봐래 원래 남그 가면 육주 탐지 남자 같으면 이 고도장부 도도 남과에 저 말에 근데 그 탐지 돈이 그래 많이 만다 봐래 진 고도장부 때 돈만이 연말 돈만이 그 어리들 근데 그 추탐지 매기도 짱만이 짱 차와데 아니 배 밖엔다고 되는 차용 그래지 맨들이 스텝 밖엔데 때모 오늘 담들이 좀만도 싸운 거 미국진 디조도 가지고 오래. porque 타마나 보다 차용을 요래시. 차용어데 베네 데 진권도 상 보소. 데 똑바르세 바는 되니 동바르세 바도 뜸바권도 상 보게 되니 베나 데 똑바 탑동 요래시. 뜸바권도 상 보고 단디 저바집에 동데 권도 상 보고 동용 거 요래시. 데 동마데 가래리 탑 가래리. 럭바권도 상 보고 다당은 소리 말한 거 좀 저바집에 따와. ndere rakpa konto zambo rakpa konto zambo jokpa chimbe lamte mande söke nyam solina ti to na otri söke to na ti soso konto zambo ese ta ti ngi cha yawan regmen ga go me deni de ben dong sharing ga wa yo ne drive parche na ten drive parche ram 하고 송아 하고 송 나한테 리 인사 레드 등이 차져 봐야 돼 때는 이렇게 사지 탐지지 공부 꾸도 좀 뭔가이라 미드 시발 싸우고 다 꾸도 좀 뭔가이라 미래
So it says that all things, all phenomena, all dharmas should be understood as the nature of the 5 Kuntuzangpos. So the five Kuntuzangpos here are Kuntuzangpo, nature, literally nature, Kuntuzangpo, Rangshin Kuntuzangpo. And so this refers to the empty or impermanent nature of all things. In other words, what is the nature of all phenomena? That is Kuntuzangpo. So that could also be the fact that everything is empty of true existence and so on. Then Gen Kuntuzangpo means Kuntuzangpo as the one who perceives all of the manifestations of cyclic existence as well as nirvana as a vast display, as like some kind of fantastic movie or virtual reality. And then the teacher Kuntuzangpo is the one who indicates what the nature of the teaching is, and the one who teaches us, this is what the view and the practice and the meditation of the great perfection is, and so on. And then Rigpa Kuntuzangpo means the Kuntuzangpo as awareness, means Kuntuzangpo as our own intrinsic awareness. And then Kuntuzangpo as realization is what was just mentioned before. That is the Kuntuzangpo as the realization of the source of both samsara and nirvana. In other words, Kuntuzangpo manifests at that moment when one understands how samsara and nirvana proceed from a single basis. So then Padmakara or Padmasambhava said a long time ago that when one sees how that the intent of all Buddhas, or the state, the wisdom state of all Buddhas is present in 5 Kuntuzangbos, or the 5 types of Kuntuzangbo, or 5 aspects of Kuntuzangbo that were just mentioned, then one feels a kind of reverence. And Rinpoche is explaining that what this means is that when you see that your own mind is Kuntuzangbo, when you see that your own nature is Kuntuzangbo, then you feel an incredible reverence for yourself. In other words, you literally want to prostrate to yourself because you see that you are in fact the primordial Buddha. So that inspires a tremendous amount of reverence. And also, one will develop a resolve to meditate for a very long time, as long as it takes to make that state fully evident. So one naturally develops a tremendous commitment to practice. And so even if one can't prostrate or make obeisance in quite that way, one can do so on the basis of faith or belief. In other words, one make obeisance to Kuntuzangpo thinking, oh, that's probably, or that seems to be my true nature. So of course I will pay homage to that state.
대다 장지 당보 며칠 리베 차네 며칠 리바데나 니 많이 봐 님이 이시대 랑도 셈당 성기 이서매 봐 님이 며칠 리베 차네 대시 주강청네 니시로 강청대 양 롱거는 저 장낭요로 봐 빼나 저달 켜라 켜야 당 대비 말라 말이야 님이 이렇게 빼인디 사사 정도 초장만이 초직직을 쓰는 초직을 너무 일이 많아서 많은 일이 찍찍이 아니면 찍바래야 돼. 대나 랑은 남동이 샘 드시 뉴보다 군도 정부 톡대니가 배나 찍바래야 돼 배나 오래. 동 찍바래야 돼. 고아점 차오나 님이 이렇게 뺀지 사사지. 동 찍바래서나 동지 사대. 당내가 빼는데 무슨 이 사나 치사는 루가 사 하게 사 이지 사는 인 탁관이 대dom매가 이 이지 사라 어디 이오 랑선부터서 예매에서 하고 어디 동지 사례데 변나다 동태다 마도롱 변오 생고학된 오 문에라는 남도 메나 다 사지에 담지 까다 냐명도 간이 때나 땅가 속은 남도 메베 샘데 다 군도장보 레데 하고서서는 오 군도장보다라고 생니 뭐도 없어. 이 군도장보나 나도지 송구로 나지 거기 예측을 남니 되버니 이게 상제 셈지 찍리에 송결이 디드는 주고 오 다리를 합성 니는 예측세 남니세 되버니세 다 하고서 되는 야고.
And so when we will come to the point where we understand, according to the famous statement in the aspiration prayer of Kuntuzangpo, how it is that Buddhas and sentient beings have a single basis that issues as 2 paths and two results. So it says here that there's a sort of a type of prostration that is called it's a type of prostration or a type of obeisance that doesn't arise from a sense of distinction. In other words, instead of the usual sense of obeisance, where there's an implicit belief and the difference between the one who prostrates and the one who is prostrated to, or the one who is revered and the one who pays homage or pays reverence, makes reverence. It's instead a type of obeisance that comes from a profound recognition of the basic non-difference of the one who pays obeisance and the one who is made obeisance to. So in this rosary of peaceful and wrathful deities, it's a particular tantra or text. It says, just as water is poured into water, and just the way butter melts into butter, one makes obeisance with a sort of fusion type of obeisance. In other words, a obeisance of fusion through the power of non-dual awareness. So there's in the second type of prostration or obeisance that is mentioned here is the is the methodical obeisance of accomplishment, or the obeisance that is a method of accomplishing the practice. In the Hevajra Tantra, it says, here I prostrate to the one who causes, or in other words, when one realizes the state, when one realizes and comes face to face with the state of the primordial Buddha, one enters the path, or one actually undertakes to do the practice. So, in other words, one undertakes practice having met with or having realized the primordial, the state of the primordial Buddha, and one prostrates to that. So that's obeisance that is associated with the resolution to practice once one has come face to face with the primordial state. So then the third type of faith, the third type of obeisance is the obeisance of the most excellent kind of conduct. So in the aspiration prayer of excellent conduct, it says, I prostrate, or I pay homage with pure body, speech, and mind. So this means paying homage with the three types of faith, like for example, the faith of confidence in the Buddha's teaching, the faith of aspiration, which wishes to all beings, and so on. So to prostrate with the three kinds of faith is the prostration or obeisance of the most excellent conduct. So now we've come to the main discussion of the text, which is the subject of discussion, as well as the how that discussion will be undertaken. So those are the two parts: the subject of discussion and the actual undertaking of the discussion. So there are six verses or 6 stanzas in the root text that will be discussed here. In the first stanza concerns, well, the commentary in the first stanza begins thus. It says that the basic nature of reality, which is the nature of things, it's like the substance of how things are essentially, when subject to non-recognition, or when it's not recognized or not understood, it becomes the source of both the higher realms and the lower realms of existence. So it's just like the way that water is pumped into an irrigation system by a hand pump. The water goes up and then eventually it flows back down again. So thus sentient beings cycle endlessly in cyclic existence.
Teni te Dzogchen Shisong na, Dzogchen Shibe, di Sibadang, Nyingji, Shimtale, Yangdab de Bade, Sibade na ben di Daobai, Hova Chapa Mebe, Sibantane de Badang, Nyingji bena, Hang Shivala Maneba, oh, Rangibu Diva, Tony Simbi Tuna, Bena Yang, the Samotangere. Ninji Shiva Talamari, Sipar Manchurva, Shiva Maneba, Sijin Tale, Yangtapan de Bate, Tedagatin, Chusupan, Man, Tedagatin Chukang, or the Tone, Sipata Shiva, Tanya Deba, take Kang, take Chusupa Kang, Man Korchu, Donga, Pongbonga, Wangbonga, Yorma, Nisharet. Nangin de Besana, then Drechuninga, Drechunia, Nishanga, Yores. That's a human. Nangin de Drechuninga. Oh, Goga, Songa, Tonga, Thank you. Thank you. That's the
So if we continue to engage in the kind of thought process frame of consciousness that has to do with cyclic existence, then we are involved in existence. We're involved in some kind of existence. And then if we go to a place of peace that is devoid of the compassion that would characterize a truly enlightened state, then we go to the extreme, we go to the opposite extreme of nirvana. And so the basis for this situation is the 5 poisons and the 5 the 5 poisons and the 5 aggregates in cyclic existence. So on the low end of the scale, the basis for these two is the 5 aggregates and the 5 poisons, as well as the 5. Okay. So as well as the 5 sense faculties and the 5 objects of those sense faculties. So there's 20 factors. The 5 poisons, the 5 aggregates, the 5 sense faculties, and the 5 objects of those sense faculties. So there's those 20 factors, and then on the high end of the scale, which is nirvana or transcendence, there is then on the other end of the scale is the 5 or 25 fruitional factors of nirvana or transcendence, which are the 5 bodies, 5 speech, 5 aspects of enlightened embodiment, 5 aspects of enlightened speech, 5 aspects of enlightened mind, 5 aspects of enlightened quality, and 5 aspects of enlightened activity. So body, speech, mind, quality, and activity, and each of those have 5 aspects for a total of 25. So those are the 5 factors or 5 dharmas of fruition that relate to transcendence or nirvana. And so these factors are what account for the pacification of all elaborations, and then the pacification of the miseries involved in change and cyclic existence. There is for the pacification of the miseries involved in the state of cyclic existence, that is the changeability of cyclic existence. There is the primordially liberated state of the essential Dharmakaya, which is the expanse of great bliss, and that is in fact nirvana. It says here makes reference to the essential Dharmakaya that is primordially liberated. So this refers to the kind of recognition that will come when we see through the usual process of conflicting emotion or conflicted emotion, where we fail to recognize, as we're cycling in cyclic existence, we're constantly involved in this state of non-recognition or a state of confusion, and when we finally come to a state of preparedness, or where we have enough purification so that we can actually see that the emptiness nature of all phenomena, then we realize that in fact everything has always been that way. That both pleasure and pain, both happiness and suffering, have always been originally liberated. There's never been any phenomenon that has not been liberated from the beginning, that has not existed in the Dharmakaya state from the very beginning in the state of liberation. So when we come to that recognition, then we recognize what, as it says here, the primordial liberation in the state of Dharmakaya.
대양 차당 세지 쪼와다 많이 봐. 오, 저번에 적네 탁박에 담전에 적 추왔더니 나이 말해지. 이제는 고소 랑가 마도바네 마도도 집에 랑가 중딩게 변하고 처리 마도도 봐. 이제는 원래 이제는 좋대요래지. 빌 초바다 동에 담지 초비 동에 담지 초바다 유모 바담지. 이제는 동반이 마시네. 마시나 다 문에 뉴 봐도 문에 딥게서 좀 빠지구나 다 저기 저기 남대 우리 저기 돌고 봐 타바 깨고 봐 드니 말해서 이제는 뉴 뭐 이제 동반이 이제 줘봐래지 저기 줘봤다 보면 봐 대양 차당 세지 줘봤다 보면 봐.
So it says this is not like this is not a case of resolving a problem on purpose, or it's not a case of resolving a problem based on some sort of outside intervention in that problem. What happens is at least the way we experience our conflicting emotions is that we are bound up in this state of conflict that's very tight and very confused and very complicated, and so it may seem as though we have to cut the ties that bind us, like we have to intervene and take some kind of drastic measure that's going to release all those knots and all those complications. But that's not the case here. In fact, what really is the case, what truly is the case, is that everything has always been free. Everything has always been free, primordially free of complication. So it's not as though we have to intervene and do something about something as though that problem really existed. So in fact, or essentially, in the ultimate state or the essential nature of things, what causes confusion, those who are confused, confusion itself, as well as the outcome or side effects of confusion, are without true existence. They have never, basically, confusion has never really existed. It is primordially pure and is the state of perfect Buddhahood. So the cause of confusion, which is unawareness or marikpa, as well as the phenomena of dichotomy, subject and object, are. So the cause of confusion, which is ignorance or unawareness, and the phenomena of dualistic perception or of subject and object, are already purified in the state of the basis or in the basic state. And so the root text here has the word sangye. So purified here, sangye means Buddha. So the first syllable of the word Buddha refers to the fact that that the cause of ignorance and the phenomena of dualistic perception are naturally pure in the basic state. And so the changeless Dharmakaya state, also all things are already expanded. Everything already exists in a very expansive way, in a totally Buddhified way, in the state which is the state of the great Tigle, the state of the great holistic sphere or Tigle. And so for that reason, this scripture that is called the summary of definitive meaning says that the word sang, as in sangye, which is the Tibetan translation of the word Buddha, so the Bu part of Buddha means that there is a complete purity of all apprehension of confusion. So all fixation on confused states of mind is purified. And the Da part of Buddha means that the state of reality is unchanging and expansive.
Tini, tela di hiso de, jache solong de, jache de, jang de zam re de, de, so di so de zam ben de so kang de ya ma nang ma, ben de di jache de zam de che de sai yo ma re. So de ne ben ko sha lo me da so de jing yu yo ma re de. De pa ji wo ma ge da no ma re. De wo ma de da ya de da re de meng dou sa yo ma re. So de ne yo re de jache so long zha ba de ne, nam ka de che zong ko de zong yu ma re de ben na. Kang de ya na ro me ba, sam de me ba, yu de me ba, na sam yu me. Nyu mong ba, jache so long le dang 자체 소롱 내와라 아니 레당 유모부 쫑나마 쫑제 담지가 마그베나 다쟁 베나 유모바면 레사가 말아 유모바라 사라 베코디 유모바 이제는 요 말이오네 상품하더니 레소고 요 말이 대통지 쫑제 담지 마그베나 다쟁 다쟁지 책대로 오모요래다지 이게 자와를 책기고라 다진 이제 딱 빠지 가래 다 요래잖아 자체 소롱도 잡아래지 뉴레당 뉴모베 동네 좀 막고 봐래지 다때는 좀 그래 드니다 니 똥받치 뭐 뱀똥 생체도 마저와지 빼는 남과 똥받을 빼야 빼좀 좋고요 남과 똥받을 뱀똥이 꼭 강력 요 말했지 사제가 도대체 남과 따로 연발라 남과 따로 연발라 생체도 맞을 바 이제는 니고 똥충족에 시바시긴 거다 얘는 이제는 니고 똥충족되네 레드 다당 가서 변의 생각 되나 랑고 랑게리고 똥들 어르빠 랑자베이시 랑살 되베라고 세물 뭐 랑게 세물 랑게를 때리고 뭐 어디는 대답은 독지는 મં주로 말이야 올해 역다 가도 내가 앞에 끼가 내 섬처가 되게 오 강이 뭐 똥을 좀 해봐 똥지 원래 똥지 똥을 받아 똥만이가 카카 많이 봐 집들아 들이 똥좀 속도 좀 봐. 자 드리고 남카도 ben똥 많이 봐. 똥좀 요게 시바시는 배나 이때 방도 얘네 예시 추적과 대해서 예시 추적과 대해서
So this state, the timeless awareness of Dharmakaya is pure. It is pure, or originally completely pure, because it is completely free of the flaws of negative emotions and karma, as well as all distinctions of dimension or direction. And so, dimension and direction mean, for example, there's no sense of either large or small. There's no sense of measurement or of relative distinction of large and small. And there's also it has no deviance as into one particular direction. In other words, there's no directionality. It doesn't have any kind of directionality or distinction. And it is completely and because there is there's no such distinction. No such distinctions. There's also no karma and no conflicting emotions. There's when there's no distinction of self and other. There's no distinction of high and low or of this and that, up and down, backwards, in front and back, and so on. Then there can be no distinction of self and other. Thus, there can be no accumulation of karma and no negative emotions. So it's completely pure in the sense of being free of even the slightest. Of being uncovered or unobscured by even the slightest factor of such flaws. And also, it is not merely a completely blank state of emptiness, because it contains the state of the coalescent state of awareness and emptiness that has always abided in the fundamental nature of things. So this state of awareness and emptiness is without any particular quality of something to be seen, something to be smelled, something to be tasted, heard, or felt. It's free of any kind of specific reference to contents of the senses, because it is completely a coalescent state. That means a state that is non-dual and is beyond any such distinction. So because there is that presence of an awareness that is the coalescence of awareness and emptiness, as well as the perfect purity that was just mentioned. We have the expression, the Dharmakaya of timeless awareness. And so the name Kuntazampo is given with reference to the fact that although there are no concepts or thoughts, there's no mental activity of the three worlds of dualistic phenomena, but there is an unobstructed knowledge that is part and parcel of that state. Hence the expression Kunda Zangpo, or timeless awareness Dharmakaya. So this is auspicious. Now that we have explained the meaning of the name Kunta Zangpo, now we can recite the Kunta Zangpo prayer as an auspicious coincidence.
Om Bedar Gora Pema Sede Om Bedar Gora Pema Sede 당 김보는 뭐지?